Hello everyone, in this video we'll be discussing about the factors which are influencing the rate of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis as a process is regulated by many factors and we can broadly classify them into two groups. One will be the external factors which from the outside of plant impact the rate of photosynthesis, and the other group is of internal factors of the plant itself. So let's start the discussion with the external factors. We have four important external factors. The first one being light intensity. We know that photosynthesis process is divided into two stages. First stage is the light reaction and the second stage is dark reaction. So the light reaction is dependent on this light and it has four important things going on. First is light absorption, which is done by light harvesting complex. The second thing is splitting of water, which provides electrons to the photosystem too. Then third thing is release of oxygen, which is taken from splitting of water. And the fourth thing is formation of ATP and NADPH, which are the energy currencies of the plant. Now this is the first point. Now second point is carbon dioxide concentration. We know that the second stage of photosynthesis is called as dark reaction, which has this cycle which is called as Kelvin cycle. And from in Kelvin cycle we know that carbon dioxide is reduced to form glucose. So therefore it is very essential that plant have enough concentration of carbon dioxide so that this dark reaction can continue. The third thing is temperature. Since this dark reaction is enzymatic in nature, therefore we know that enzymes function optimum at their optimum temperature. Therefore temperature also regulates the rate of photosynthesis. The fourth thing is water. Water does not impact the rate of photosynthesis directly, but for sure it can impact the rate by indirect means. That means if there is a shortage of water for the plant will tell leaves to close all the stomatas. Stomata is just like a window for leaves, and if the stomatas are kept open, water will evaporate through the stomata, and that process is called as transpiration. Therefore, to reduce the rate of transpiration, plant closes stomata. But once stomata is closed, how will carbon dioxide enter inside the leaves? Therefore, water impacts the rate of photosynthesis this way. And also the one thing, in light reaction, that is stage 1 of photosynthesis, we know that water is split into 4 protons, 4 electrons and oxygen gas. And therefore, for this process to continue, which is called as splitting of water, we require water. Now the second group of factors are the internal factors of the plant. We have 4 major grounds on which we have to evaluate these internal factors. The first one is the number, second one is the size of that factor, third is the age of that factor, and fourth is orientation of that factor. For example, if we talk about leaves, more the number of leaves, more will be the rate of photosynthesis of that plant. Similarly, more will be the size of that leaf, more surface area would be available for sunlight to fall, and therefore more will be rate of photosynthesis. But older leaves would perform slower rate of photosynthesis in comparison to the younger leaves. And if the orientation of leaf is towards sunlight, it will perform more photosynthesis in respect to the leaf which is facing away from the sunlight. Similarly, we have mesophyll cells. Mesophyll cells contain chloroplast, and chloroplast is an organelle which can align itself according to the need of the plant. For example, if plant is placed in a shady locality, then these mesophyll cells would align themselves parallel to the wall of mesophyll cells. But if it is present in a high light intensity area, then these chloroplasts will align themselves parallel to the wall of mesophyll cells if this box is a mesophyll cell. So you could see how they are aligned parallel and perpendicular to the mesophyll cell's wall. Now these three were the internal factors. One is the leaf, mesophyll cell and the chloroplast, their number, size, age and orientation. Now let's talk about Blackmans Law of limiting factors. So Blackman said that whensoever a biochemical process is regulated by several factors, then the rate of that process, for example here we are talking about photosynthesis, which is also regulated by many factors. Therefore the rate of photosynthesis will be determined by the factor which is present in the minimum quantity. We can discuss it by taking an example of a bicycle manufacturing company. If a bicycle manufacturing company has 3 units, one unit is making the framework of bicycle, second unit is making tires for the bicycle, and third unit is making seats for the bicycle. If the number of seats produced are very less, then how come the whole factory produce high number of bicycles? But the rate of bicycle manufacturing can be increased if the number of seats produced per day is increased. And that only Blackman said that if that factor quantity is changed, it will directly affect the process. Let me revise it for you. That Blackman said that a biochemical process which is regulated by several factors has the rate of the minimum quantity factor, and if the quantity of that factor is increased, it will directly impact the rate of that biochemical process. Now let's talk about these external factors individually. The first factor we have is light. So at low light intensities, there is a linear relationship between incident light and carbon dioxide fixation. If we increase the amount of incident light falling on the leaves, the rate of carbon dioxide fixation, or say that of glucose formation, is increased. But if we talk about higher light intensities, the rate does not increase further. Why? Because other factors are also there and they will turn out to be limiting. Therefore, one more thing, if we give the plant a very high light intensity, that can cause breakdown of chlorophyll pigment, and that is called as photooxidation of chlorophyll. Therefore, higher light intensities beyond a point is not very helpful for the plants, rather it causes damage to the plant and the chlorophyll of that plant. Therefore, there would be a decrease in photosynthesis seen. Now let us talk about at which light intensity will the plant say, oh, I had my full, I do not need more light from the sun. So that is achieved at only 10% of the total sunlight available on this planet. So therefore it is said that light is rarely a limiting factor. Except for the plants, those who are growing in shade, light will never be a limiting factor for a plant. And now let's see this graph which is plotted against the rate of photosynthesis performed against light intensity. At lower light intensity, say from this point to this point, you can see there is a linear increase in the graph. As we are increasing the light intensity, the rate of photosynthesis is also increasing. But after reaching a particular point, there is no further increase of rate of photosynthesis when the light intensity is increased, just because here in this region of the graph, other factors are turning to be the limiting factors, and if one of the factor is short, the whole process will lag behind. So this is a graph of light intensity versus rate of photosynthesis. First part is showing a linear graph, and then the graph is turning out to be flat. Now let's talk about second external factor, that is carbon dioxide concentration. And friends, as we discussed that light is rarely a limiting factor, but this carbon dioxide is the major limiting factor for the plant, because carbon dioxide concentration in atmosphere is only 0.03 to 0.04%. But if the concentration of carbon dioxide is increased up to 0.05%, that is 0.01% increment is given, there is seen that the carbon dioxide fixation would increase. But if the concentration is increased beyond 0.05%, then this will prove out to be damaging for the plant for a long period of time. Therefore, let me recall you that 0.03 to 0.04% is the amount of carbon dioxide present in our atmosphere. If the amount of carbon dioxide is increased 0.05%, the amount of carbon dioxide fixed will be increased. But if the concentration is increased beyond 0.05%, this will prove out to be damaging for the plant. Now let's talk about how are the plant responding to high carbon dioxide concentration if we reduce the light intensity or if we increase the light intensity. So it was seen that at low light intensities, neither C3 plants nor C4 plants are responding to high carbon dioxide concentration. They are saying, what we will do of this much carbon dioxide when we do not have light to carry out light reaction. But if we provide high light intensity to the plant, both C3 and C4 plants will say, yes, we are ready to make more glucose, and there would be higher rates of photosynthesis occurring. Now let's talk about the saturation of carbon dioxide concentration. At at C4 plants, you could see that saturation is occurring at 360 parts per million. And friends, parts per million can also be written as mu1 per liter. So therefore it is also written as 360 mu1 per liter. And in C3 plants, you could see that the carbon dioxide concentration saturation is much higher than C4 plants. Therefore, they will be saturated at a concentration beyond 450 parts per million, or that could be written as more than 450 mu per liter. But friends, if we see that the amount of carbon dioxide present in our atmosphere is ranging between 300 parts per million to 400 parts per million. That means you could see that C4 plants will never complain of low carbon dioxide concentration, because it is somewhere in between them. They say that we are full, now we do not need more carbon dioxide. If we increase carbon dioxide concentration more than 360 parts per million, C4 plants will say no, it is turning out to be damaging to me, do not increase it further. But C3 plants will say that hey, I need more carbon dioxide because in the atmosphere it is only 400 and I can do my job up to 450 parts per million. So could you please increase the carbon dioxide concentration so that I could do more rate of photosynthesis? Then human said, of course we can do that. And that is used as a greenhouse effect. You have seen that there are huts made up of fabric under which plants are grown. This is because this causes carbon dioxide entrapment in this hut, and therefore carbon dioxide concentration is increased in the local environment. Therefore these C3 plants could increase their rate of photosynthesis, and therefore we have a statement saying that current CO2 levels, that is from 300 to 400 parts per million, is limiting to C3 plants because they can perform optimum up to 450 parts per million carbon dioxide concentration. And this is only used in this greenhouse effect where we plant C3 plants in a house which entraps carbon dioxide and increases the carbon dioxide concentration. And the examples of these C3 plants are tomato and bell pepper. Examples of C4 plants are, yes, maize and sorghum. So this was the second factor which we have to discuss as an external factor influencing rate of photosynthesis. That is carbon dioxide, major limiting factor. Now let's talk about the third factor, which is temperature. Since we have already discussed that photosynthesis has two parts, light reaction and dark reaction. This dark reaction is enzymatic, therefore is temperature controlled, because enzymes will function their best at the optimum temperature. C4 plants will respond to higher temperature just because C4 plants are adapted for tropical areas where the temperature ranges between 30 to 40 degrees Celsius. But C3 plants say that I belong to temperate region and the temperature optimum for me is just 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Beyond this temperature, I cannot perform photosynthesis. But C4 plants can respond to higher light in higher temperature and higher light conditions in comparison to the C3 plants. And the temperature optimum for tropical plants, that is C4 plants, is more than temperate plants, that is C3 plants. So this was the third factor which we have to discuss, temperature being an external factor. Now the last factor is water. As told, water indirectly affects the rate of photosynthesis just by its effect on the plants. Therefore, water stress will cause stomata to close, and if stomata will close, gaseous exchange between the plant and the atmosphere will not take place, and therefore carbon dioxide will not be available for the dark reaction and no glucose formation will occur and photosynthesis will stop. And also it causes leaves to wilt, and if leaves will wilt, the surface area of the leaf would decrease and the amount of light falling on leaf would decrease. If light is decreasing, therefore the first part of photosynthesis, that is light reaction, will not occur. With this we have finished all four external factors. Light, which is rarely a limiting factor just because at 10% of the total sunlight plant says that I am full. Second factor was carbon dioxide concentration, and carbon dioxide is a major limiting factor. We have discussed that the carbon dioxide saturation is achieved at more than 450 parts per million for C3 plants, but for C4 plants it is achieved at more than 360 parts per million only. And current carbon dioxide concentration, that is 300 to 400 parts per million, is limiting to C3 plants. Therefore, we grow them in greenhouses where carbon dioxide concentration is increased up to 450 parts per million. An example of these C3 plants are tomato and bell pepper. Coming to the third factor, that is temperature. Higher temperatures are tolerated by C4 plants just because they are belonging to tropical regions. And now the last factor, which is water, influences the rate of photosynthesis indirectly. It has effects on the leaf. First of all, it causes stomata to close, and the second thing is it will cause wilting of leaf. Therefore, surface area will reduce. And with this, we have finished the factors which are influencing the rate of photosynthesis. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, do check my other content also, and I post all my notes on my Telegram channel. Do visit that also. Thank you for watching this video till the end.